Hey guys, it's Alec Torelli, and I'm really excited to bring you this episode of the Poker Flops podcast. Ricky and Dom are both amazing guys. We really hit it off right away, and I think you could feel that in the episode. We talk the future of poker, some practical exercises you can do to study and stay sharp and ahead of the curve, especially if you're watching this during quarantine, during COVID. We talk about what's coming up on the radar, some things I've been working on, as well as some never before revealed stories about the life of high stakes poker in Macau and how the poker landscape has changed in the past and what's coming in the future. We really hit it off, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. More awesome content is coming your way. Thank you for your support and attention. Without further
Going to hop right in. One of the first questions I had for Alec was kind of Googling around you the other day and came across, I don't know if it was your YouTube or LinkedIn or something, but it had you listed as a motivational speaker. Didn't really say anything about poker, so I don't know what platform I saw that on. So I was curious if you had kind of transitioned away from poker in a way into motivational speaking, and if you could kind of talk about that.
It's funny. I don't know where you saw it, but some of the things, are not necessarily what I control in terms of like what the things they're saying. So I actually had someone describe me as a life coach the other day, and I'm like, where do you guys get this stuff? Like I do. Okay. So I would describe myself as like professional poker player and coach and entrepreneur and speaker. So like, I would say probably in that order. But I do speak. I love giving talks and keynotes. Is it motivational? I think some of the things I say are motivational, I guess, but I wouldn't say that I'm a motivational speaker just because it's like, I would just say speaker. And then, sometimes hopefully people are motivated by what I'm saying, but hopefully people are also, maybe inspired, or maybe they're like entertained, or maybe they're enlightened, but whatever. I don't know, anything you could say. They're informed, but what are you going to say? Informed as speaker? I don't know. Anyway, I have done some talks about the lessons I learned in poker that apply towards life and business. I gave a talk at like a marketing conference called War Room, or to a group of executives at Cisco. And I was talking about things like decision-making and when to use logic versus intuition, how to evaluate risk, and some of the lessons that I think poker teaches you about strategic decision-making in life. And, poker's, it's like nothing that, I guess these things are like timeless principles, but it's through the language of poker that I feel like my approach to it is unique. And it's something that people might intuitively say, okay, that makes sense. Or maybe they've heard about decision-making before, but not through this lens. And so when you're bringing new analogies to it and you're talking about something that's exciting and that's, compelling, like poker, that people can relate to, or that's a game and there's all these aspects to it, then, people receive that message in a different way. And so I think that's what my unique approach is, that makes my speaking different. But that's a fun thing I'm working on, and I want to do more.
Just a side note on that, before obviously all the Corona happened, how much poker were you planning on playing over the summer in the next 6 months? Do you have a set schedule that you still play, or were you transitioning to more of like, a lot of entrepreneurial stuff, some, speaking, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. So with poker, I'm in Italy now, and
right.
When I'm in Italy, I spend time here because my wife's family's from here. We spend a couple months a year here, and I don't play any poker when I'm here. I do a lot of coaching. I work with clients virtually all over the world, so I do a lot of coaching, like on Zoom, and I create a lot of content. And so I'm still doing a lot of things in the lab. I'm still like improving. Honestly, I'm probably improving more than I am otherwise, because I'm spending so much time on poker, whether it's like solving problems from clients or creating content. Someone will send me a hand, and before I do a hand of the day about it, I have to kind of analyze it. I have to go in the lab. And so like, I actually get a lot better at poker when I'm here, even though I'm not playing. But as far as my playing schedule goes, it really just depends on where I am physically in the world. So if I'm every summer I go back to the US for the series, and I always play poker and coach poker during that time. And so I was planning on going back to there, of course. And also usually when I'm there, I do a run at Live at the Bike, because my family's from Southern California. And so I go there, and then I also play on Live at the Bike. And sometimes I have a week where I'm there and I'm playing all the time and stuff like that. So I was usually doing that 1-2 punch. I did that last year, planning on doing it this year. Obviously things got turned upside down with COVID. So now I don't know. You know, so who knows how long
Yeah.
this is going to play out. I've been saying I think this could last until there's a vaccine. So I'm planning on 16 months from now or so. But yeah, like I would say that would always be like a pit stop during the year, and then I would have a couple other events where I would play throughout the year. Like when I'm back in the U.S., if I'm in the Upper East Coast, I would make a tour around that area to maybe play on an event or two, or go meet some clients and then play a stop or two while I'm there, or in Florida as well. And so I try and coincide my poker travels to where there's an event, and then I have some clients I could work with as well. So it's like a combination of playing and coaching, creating content, and it's like a really fun mixture of things for me. But I would say over the years, my focus has shifted a little bit towards not just only playing poker, but also coaching poker and creating content around poker. And then of course I have a business around poker. So it's more dynamic and it's more fun. And then recently it's also been, extrapolating the lessons I've learned from poker that also apply outside of it. So it's just been a little bit more well-rounded for me. Whereas the first, 10, 12 years of my career was like, all I did was play poker. And so now I feel like I get a lot more out of this balance that I have now.
I have a follow-up on that. Since you were really outspoken on Twitter, I think because you saw what was happening in Italy and you got a lot of pushback on that, do you care to make a prediction for what live poker looks like going forward, the WSOP this year, when the next big live event's going to be, and what do you think that actually looks like?
Yeah, so I put out a piece of content. Well, so I started putting out content about this in late February. And it doesn't seem that long ago, but late February, the whole world was different. I mean, nothing was canceled. Yeah. People weren't social distancing. And I was saying like, WSOP is going to be canceled. There's going to be a demand shock where people aren't going to want to play poker because they're not going to be one around other people. The market's going to collapse, and this is going to cause people to have less liquidity because there's high risk, there's high volatility that's going to make them more risk adverse. And I'd say casinos were going to close. And this was like, crazy talk. If you look at some of the comments I got on Twitter or YouTube, people were like, yeah, right, that's impossible.
I was still at the Commerce at that time, by the way, I think. So, yeah. I was still going to Commerce daily. So.
Yeah, everyone was. I mean, nothing had really changed at that point. But I was, like you said, I'm in Italy, so I was like living in the future, so I could see what was happening here. And I was like, okay, exponential growth, doubling every 3 days. A lot of people travel from Europe to the US. Like, this is just inevitable. Like, there's no exit strategy here. I mean, there's the only way, this is destined to happen. It's just a matter of time, right?
Yeah.
So it happened actually quick because, exponential growth happens very fast. But then I put out a piece recently called 7 Things I Learned in Italy That Are Going to Happen in the US. And that's like my newest piece. It's on alectorelli.com or youtube.com/Alec Torelli. There's a video about it. And that's like my updated predictions. So I did a set of predictions in February about what was going to happen. And then this is my updated one in March about what I think the next 12 to 18 months look like. And basically the short of it is there's a lot of it's based on this study out of Imperial College that looks at what they think life is going to look like for the next 18 months. And they found that they think that in order to keep the curve flattened, you've heard the term flattening the curve, basically not having the hospital systems overrun, that you would need to have like some intermittent social distancing in society where you have like 2 months of strict measures followed by a month of slightly relaxed measures to kind of allow things to not be, the hospitals not to be overrun. Because like people think like, okay, the thing that I've never figured out is people are like, okay, this period lasts 2 weeks or a month, right? What do they think happens after this month? You just like, okay, let's go back to normal. We're going to go back to the NCAA and the basketball game. And then like, you're just going to explode the cases. I'm like, what's going to happen? It's obvious you're not going to go back to normal life. So I think some things in society are going to happen. Like essential businesses are going to open. Our school's going to open. Maybe there's some ambiguity there, but like, okay, you're going to have like veterinarians open, maybe like hair salons open, like or like supermarkets, like some things that are like more essential, but like, you're not going to have stadiums open and like these mass events going on. Otherwise this thing is just going to explode. So like casinos are clearly discretionary, right? This is the worst place for a virus. You have all these people inside a closed environment passing chips. Or it's like they have the Rio flu even when everything is fine, right? It's like literally a name for the WSOP.
Right. It's a petri dish for COVID.
So I think what you're going to see in the next 12 to 18 months is like, I would, and I said this in my first video when I put out 3 ways coronavirus is going to disrupt poker. I said people should plan on a year. Like people should really plan on this happening for a year. And I think now like we kind of have to plan on our life looking different until there's like herd immunity or a vaccine or a cure. And so like those herd immunity is something that's going to take a long time. A vaccine is going to take 18 months or 18 months from when they started working. So maybe like 17 months, 16 months, something like that. Herd immunity is going to take a while. A cure, we don't know about that. So I feel like these measures are going to be in place a long time. The WSOP, I think there's no chance that happens. I think live events, like, you're not going to see those. I think if you do see them, people aren't going to want to go. You're going to see like much smaller turnout. You got to also remember, life doesn't just go back to normal when things open, because people are unsure about their financial situation. They're unsure about traveling is not going to be the first thing on their mind. It's going to be getting their life back stable and in order, right? People are stuck 35% in the markets. Like, that's going to make people have less liquidity. And that was one of my points, is like, we're on a bull run for 10 years. People have like so much, they're doing so well in the markets, just used to making 10% a year. You know, like that money flows into discretionary activities like poker. But my point was that like, poker's the first thing to go in a moment of crisis. Like, people don't need to play poker necessarily. And so I think you're going to see smaller turnouts for major events, even if they do come back before the next 12 months. But I really wouldn't, I would look at it like a free roll if that happened. I wouldn't expect that to happen, but if it does, great. But I think it's important to be planned for that future, especially if your income derives from poker, just to be planning on that. And then, you know, you're safe.
Just one more quick follow-up to that, because I heard a couple of the other poker vloggers speak about, so the online boom obviously has kind of hit, at least for the US. I'm not sure how it is on Stars and stuff. I would assume it's the same though. Do you think this is more of like a short-term like solution? And if you were like, say you were in your 21 to 25-year-old age, like, would you be planning on like this not, you know, continuing and like trying to look at other paths? Or what would you say to some 22-year-old kid who like had all of his plans? I'm not 22. I'm just saying to someone that's 22 that
like 25.
that thanks. That had all his plans to like go do this poker life type of thing.
So when you say do a poker life, you mean traveling and playing poker? Or
well,
playing
yeah,
online?
just like, I mean, in general, like, you know, if the WSOP is going to be canceled, that could be something that someone was looking at, you know, a big part of their year, if that's what they were going to do, you know?
Yeah, I look, I put out a video called, you know, should the WSOP be canceled? And I was saying like, the best thing for like my poker year is the WSOP, right? Like, my EV is the highest.
Of course.
It's great publicity. I like last time I did coaching for the documentary called Poker Queens. So I was coaching the group of women. I had clients that I worked with from all around the world. Like, it's the best time of year for me. But I was also saying in this video, like, we can't have the WSOP run in the current environment that we're in. Like, it's just not a responsible thing to do. So I think like, this is a short-term thing. I think like in the long term, if you're really long-term thinking about your career in poker for the next like decade, like, I think there's going to be opportunities in poker, and like life is going to eventually resume, and like poker will be a viable way to make money in a casino or certainly online. But I think if you're looking at things now, like, this online boom may be temporary, but it's going to last insofar that people are on lockdown. And then if the online boom sort of stops when people go off lockdown, well, then you're going to transition back into the casinos. So I think there might be a little bit of a lull in between, where like casinos aren't open, but people aren't on lockdown, because there's like small measures that are allowed for people to do in society. But like, at the end of the day, I think, I think that poker is still a viable option. I think it's also still like a good time for people to study up and stay ahead of the curve and like practice and like get better at poker, because when you do come back, then you could be ahead of the curve. And this is something I was encouraging my clients to do that I was working with. And actually I've been quite busy working with clients, because now people are like, hey, I have time to study. Let me like take that course, or like, you know, work in the lab, or like really review all my hands that I have this huge list of hands, but because I've been playing so much and not studying, you know, it's a good time to do that. And then when you do come back to poker, you're sharp, you're like ready to go. So I think it's also, you know, there's always something you can be doing to get better and ultimately improve.
Alec, we were also curious, kind of transitioning off of this, how you got into poker and your history with online poker, and if you have any Black Friday stories.
Yeah. So I guess 3 questions. I got into poker when I was 16, 2003. and I got invited to a friend's house, and Moneymaker just won the main event. Everybody was playing home games. I won $12 my first time, and I thought I was, a rock star. And I was like, oh, this is great. I love poker. Yeah, easy game. And I was never great at sports, and I saw something that I thought I could be good at. And like, I did get lucky the first time. I had no skill in the game, obviously, but I felt like this was something that I was in my element, like I had a knack for, and I liked the game. I really loved it. So I was like, okay, it's something that I want to pursue. I never thought, I was going to like, take poker very far or anything. But I just like fell in love with the game, and I just kept playing all the time in high school. I went home games after school with friends. I like read a few books like Super System and Play Poker Like the Pros. I talked poker with another few friends in high school that also were obsessed and loved poker and that were like the better players. And so we started winning regularly in my home games, and I put money online when I was in high school. I won a tournament in high school for like $2K, which was, like $1 million at the time.
Yeah.
And so I had these like early breaks, and I had this like early kind of like first mover advantage where I was like better than the other people, which allowed me to kind of get better and like build a bankroll and like take shots at online. And I got involved in online at a time where it was like very easy. And so because I had this like little mini skill set that I built up in my home games, that allowed me to win online. And so these things all sort of propelled, and I caught my first big break online when I went to, I was playing at the time. This is like 2 years later now, 3 years later, I'm dropped out of college. I moved to Australia, and I was playing online at the time, and I was probably playing like 2, 4, 3, 6, 5, 10, which was like a decent amount, but I was playing enough to pay my bills. I could like move to Australia. Like I could kind of do what I want, but I wasn't like, I still was at that level. And I played a tournament. It was like the F-Tops, which was the biggest tournament in online history at the time. And there were, 3,000 players, and I came in first. And so I won $250,000 in a day. And that was 2007. I was like 19. And then that really put me on the map in like poker. So people like did like some interviews, and like I got like attention around this, and I like parlayed that up that year, because now I could play like 25-50, and then I started playing 25-50 on Party Poker and Full Tilt, and I ran it up that year on Full Tilt. I was, I think, like the 7th biggest winner in the world that year. I made over $1 million on Full Tilt in 2007. So like things went really well for me, and that tournament allowed me to kind of like parlay that up and play a lot higher stakes, and then like really have a great run in online poker. So that was like a huge breakthrough year for me. And, ups and downs after that. I moved to Vegas, whatever. Black Friday hit. I was 24. I moved to Italy, and I wanted to like learn Italian and kind of take a break from poker. I was really burnt out. I'd been playing like pretty much 8 years straight at this point, like 6 years professionally. All I did was poker. And so it was actually kind of a good time for me, because I was in Italy and I was kind of taking a break from poker. And then I was still like sort of playing online and whatever when I was there, but then Black Friday hit and I couldn't play. So it actually kind of came at a good time, because it felt like it like sort of forced me to get immersed in the life I was living in Italy.
And you didn't have a lot of money on there, I would assume then?
I had money on Full Tilt.
Okay. Not a ton though. It wasn't like backbreaking for you when,
No, because I had money off of Full Tilt too.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And because I had a lot on Full Tilt, but I also played live poker, because now I was 24, and I played a lot of live poker in like Vegas and whatever. So like I had a lot of money off. Yeah, I had a lot of money off Full Tilt as well. So I just looked at it like I had written the money off. I'm like, I'm not going to get it, but at the same time, I was fine. I was still in a good spot. So it actually came at ironically like a good time, because I tried to look, it's all about how you look at things. And so I really tried to look at it like, okay, obviously financially this is not good, but at the same time, like now what am I going to do here? So like, how am I going to react to this situation? That's all I can control. You can't control the cards you're dealt, only how you play the hand. So I'm like, okay, well now I'm here, I'm in Italy. It's like April. I'm going to, focus on doing something that I wanted to do while I'm in Italy, because it's easy to get distracted with poker, and then you're in Italy, but there's really no reason you're there, because you're like locked in your little room. So I was like, whatever, let me kind of like immerse myself in the culture here. And so that actually turned out to be like a great break for me.
Nice. Can you speak Italian pretty well?
Yeah, I'm decent. Yeah, pretty well. Like my in-laws don't speak English, so
that's
a really great opportunity to force me to speak. Yeah. Actually, how I met my wife was I was looking for a place to learn Italian when I went to Italy. And so I walked into the university and I like went into one of the rooms where I was like expecting to find like, I don't know, like somewhere where I could sign up for a course. And so I walked into her office and she was moving to Florida to teach. And it turns out she was like a teacher at the university, and we agreed to do a language exchange basically, where like I would help her with her English and like get ready to go to Florida, and she would teach me Italian. Perfect. And yeah, that's how we met. And so like that was also all during this time. We met in like late January, but that was all during this time when I was in Italy. And so like I was spending more time with this girl that I just met that, would soon become my wife. And so it was overall a great experience.
So Black Friday was kind of like a good thing, honestly, for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to analyze something like in the moment. It's like so easy to like look at whatever's happening to you in the moment and then identify it as good or bad. But then when you look at it through the lens of retrospect, it's easier to kind of see the bigger picture and then maybe say, well, thanks to this event that was difficult to go through or painful at the time, I actually ended up where I am now. And so was that event really bad or was it actually good? And so like when you're looking at it from a narrow time horizon, it's easy to label something one way, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it's pushing it along.
I had mid six figures tied up on Sirius on Ultimate Bet and Absolute Poker. And I remember people were always like, why didn't you get your money off? But it had gotten so bad in the 6 months previous to that, where they had limited cash outs to like $2,500 a week. So I literally couldn't get the money.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Did you ever get it?
I got it. Yes. I mean, what did they pay out? 2017, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All those years later, but I had written it off too. But like you were made whole faster, so that was
forced savings.
It was a devastating day.
That's a good way to look at it. Forced savings.
Yeah, forced savings.
But it's interesting. It's funny at like how your F-Tops win there kind of puts you on the map. I only played online, and I played Limit Hold'em like nosebleeds for a long time. So I'm probably one of the top 10 biggest Limit Hold'em winners of all time, but nobody would ever know who I am. That's fine. 2018, I had a deep run in the main event. And then, of course, like you're on ESPN, and then finally you've made it just because you're on TV playing poker. It's like, oh, he's a real poker player now. I'm like, no.
That's the first question someone that doesn't really know poker will ask you, right? Like, oh, you play poker. Oh, you've been on TV and those events. Like, that's the only way that you're legitimate, right?
That totally legitimizes you.
Yeah, it's true.
Player. Yeah.
Go on, Pod.
No, you go ahead, Al.
No, just to let Alec talk about his site a little bit. I just wanted to ask a question as far as what you think you do run a training site, correct?
Conscious Poker is training site, blog, YouTube, exactly.
Right. Just to give the people kind of what maybe differentiates you with, I guess when I was coming up, there was not a lot of training sites, but I guess now you could kind of go out there and find at least 4 or 5 pretty credible ones that,
for sure,
that
no question,
do a lot of marketing. So if you wanted to just talk about that, just to.
I mean, you gotta find a teaching style that works for you, right? So like we make a lot of our content free, and you could see my training style on YouTube, and if it resonates with you, then that would be a way it's different. It's like a way to approach poker. What I try and do with clients in my coaching is do like conceptual based learning, and what I mean by that is like instead of focusing on the specific hand that you're playing, like anytime you have Jack 10 in the small blind, you should do this. I try and focus on the concept that underlies the hand so that you can understand the situation and why you're doing what you're doing. And then you can apply those concepts to every situation you face, because it's too hard to memorize. Like some people always ask me like, oh, don't you have pre-flop charts for 3-betting? And I'm like, dude, if you're in the small blind, okay, and you want to memorize a pre-flop chart for 3-betting, you have to memorize just in the small blind what you're going to do against 7 other players, right? Because what if under the gun opens? Or what if under the gun +1 opens? What if under the gun +2 opens? What if under the gun +2 opens and then there's a call? You're going to memorize like 30 things down the game tree. It's just not possible. So
on top of ranges, right? Like
ranges, on top of like the exploits of these ranges. Well, what if he has a GTO range? Well, what if he has a little bit wider than GTO? What if he has narrower than GTO? Like it's just not practical, right? So like I'm just like, forget. I mean, charts have their place and they're useful to like get a conceptual idea, but let's just focus on like which types of hands you should be 3-betting, why you should be 3-betting, which situations you should be 3-betting light, and which situations you should be 3-betting narrow. And like that, now you have an idea. And so next time you're in a spot that you've never seen before or that we haven't discussed before, you know what to do. So if we discuss a situation where mid position opens and the cutoff calls, and we discussed a concept, you can apply that strategy to under the gun opening and the button calling, because you're like, oh, I kind of understand what I should be doing and why. So that's my like teaching sort of approach. The second thing I would say that makes us unique is that I'm very accessible within our programs, and our community is very strong. So that's like one of the main central focuses of what I tried to build with the membership at Conscious Poker. So for example, myself and another coach at Conscious Poker are in there on the Facebook group responding. We say guaranteed response because one of us will respond to all of the questions that are posted in the Facebook group. So if someone is a member of Conscious Poker and they post a hand in the Facebook group, or they post a question, like you will get a response, not just from the community, but you'll also get a response from one of the coaches. And that's like pretty unique to be able to access us. We also do a monthly group coaching call, which we just had on Sunday, where like I'll lead a coaching call like this on Zoom, and like all the members will get on, and I'll review hands, and I'll be open for Q&A. The other thing is that like the hands that we review every week in the membership, we have like weekly content that comes out, are all hands that people submit. So our members submit hands, and I'll pick the hands that the members submit and review them. So it's very like interactive, and people have a chance to have access to me and like kind of have me overseeing their game for a group coaching sort of style. And we even have people like in the membership that are like, they post in the membership and they say, hey, I want to talk strategy with someone. And they'll call someone else that responds to their Facebook group, and they'll talk like poker pot odds. Like, hey, let's talk pot odds today, or let's talk ranges. And they'll like talk about a hand that they posted. And so we're facilitating all these interactions. And so that was really important to me, because one of the main feedback struggles I get from people, one of their pain points is that like they don't have someone to talk poker with. They're in wherever and they go play, and they're really serious about poker, but their friends don't really care, and they're like people around them don't really support them, and they don't really know anyone that plays poker. So like, how can they get better? And one of the things that was so huge for me was that I got to talk poker with people that, you know, ended up being some of the best players in the game, and I got to do that at a young age. Like I met like some great players during my first live event when I went to PCA when I was 18. I met like Tom Dwan and Andrew Roble. Like I met them there. And so like we talked poker and became friends for like years. And so I know how important that was to me. And so when I started thinking about a training site, I wanted to create that with other people.
All right. I have a question off of that. We asked Berkey and the other guests we've had on.
Yep.
GTO versus exploitative. Where do you lay on that in terms of your overall approach?
It really just depends on the situation you're in. You can't like, both are really important, right? So I definitely teach both, and I'll like differentiate between when you should use one and when you should use another. So it's really important to understand what the correct play is. So you always want to start with that. Like, what is the right play here? If I was playing against a computer, what would the computer do? And that's like a generally good way to talk about poker. But then it's neglecting your full potential if you don't acknowledge that there's a better way to play the hand than just what the computer would do. And like an obvious example is like, if you're against a guy who never 4-bet bluffs, well, then you would just be an idiot to like go all in with a marginal hand. Like, it would just be a stupid thing to do. Like, right. So like, I know GTO wouldn't agree with that though. Like the computer would be like, well, technically he could be, and if I don't do this, then the long term, like that's just absolutely moronic in my opinion. I think that's just like, there's no argument for that. And if you think about other examples, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, let's say, for example, you're playing basketball against a great player. It's really important that he doesn't know what play you're going to make. Like, he doesn't know if you're going to drive to the hoop, you're going to shoot a 3-pointer, you're going to do a crossover, you're going to do a fadeaway jump shot. That mystery makes you difficult to play against. It's also important because you need these shots in order to beat that player. But if you're playing basketball against a 7-year-old, it's just really stupid to shoot 3-pointers. Like, it's just a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
It might be balanced. It might be the correct play. It might be the EV play if you're the Golden State Warriors and you have like a great 3-point shooting team and 3 points equals more than 2 points. And the percentage of the time you're going to make the 3-pointer equals a higher EV for shooting 3. But it's just stupid because you're playing basketball against a 7-year-old. And so poker is the same way. When you're playing against a banana that never folds, you really should never bluff. And my main point here of why exploitative play is so important and why this conversation about GTO has like damaged the way I think people practically play poker is because when GTO is the only strategy you should use, you shouldn't be playing poker. Like, you shouldn't be playing in games if your goal is to make money. If your goal is to make money, You shouldn't be playing in games where you need GTO against all the opponents, because you're not going to win much money. It's not going to be worth your time. And if you're good enough to win in that game, your time's probably better spent elsewhere. Unless you're, we're talking about like the top 0.1%, top 0.01%, 0.1% of people in the world that are able to win in those games and win a lot of money. So those are the people sometimes that are teaching. And so for them, it like makes sense to be on this level. But like for the public that's playing 2-5 no limit, it doesn't make any sense. And like, you don't want to be playing in games where GTO is the most important thing. It's not practical for most people, because most people that are absorbing the training content, that are playing 1-3 and 2-5, or my clients, or the people that are coming in conscious poker that are watching a YouTube video, aren't in games where they're playing against those types of people. So it's not that those strategies aren't important. They're important against the other 2 or 3 pros. We talk about those things. You need those things. They're very important, but you can't neglect the other side. You need a marriage of both, right? So context is important there.
Yeah, I would even, when you were talking about, what to do out of the small blind with 3-betting and stuff like that, and we talked about all the different situations, I think that people use GTO like way too much. And you're talking about that, like, imagine to actually play it, I think people always overuse it. Like, I'm playing GTO. They'd have to memorize so many spots to actually be playing anywhere close to GTO that I think it's overdone anyway. So
the other problem that I have with it is that it's like a cheap sort of way to justify making a play. Okay. And what I mean by that is, because if you look at solvers, if you look at there's a program called Pio Solver, which is like the GTO. I don't know what level your audience is on. So just, anyway, they'd be like, Alec, we know that shit. Cool. So there's Pio Solver. Pio Solver is the GTO program for those that aren't aware. Okay. So if you look at the way that Pio Solver plays hands, it's never binary. Okay, so what I mean by that is that Pio Solver, I don't want to say never, because never is a big word, but Pio Solver doesn't really like take an action 100% of the time or 0%. I mean, it's always going to fold 7-deuce offsuit, but that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about situations like on the river where it's going to have a bluffing percentage, and the bluffing percentage might be 4%, it might be 7%, it might be 15%, but it's going to bluff some of the time, or it's going to call some of the time, it's going to 3-bet some of the time, it's going to do everything some of the time. So the cheap sort of excuse that I think people like maybe over give credit to, give credence to, is that like, well, I have to bluff some of the time, so I'm gonna like, this is the time and whatever. And it's just like, it's hard to keep accurate with the frequencies. It's hard to randomize. And it's easy to kind of just be caught into like, well, I have to call some of the time, I have to bluff some of the time. And like,
I
feel like there's a lot of that goes on.
Justified button clicking. I used the term yesterday.
Yeah.
I think as humans, to say it's hard to find the right frequency is very kind. I mean,
yeah.
It's almost impossible.
And I know people have a lot of creative ways to do it. Like they have, they look at the second hand on their watch, and if it's between 45 and 0, then they have one line, or like other people I know have like the suit of the card that comes dictates their aggression frequency, and like those things are all really good. I'm just not sure like against how many players that strategy is really important. And my point, going back to my point before, is like the players that you need to use that strategy against are the minority, and if they are the majority, then quit the game.
Yep. Yeah,
if I have to start looking at my clock to base off my bluffing percentage, I will absolutely quit the game. So
yeah.
You watch those like super high rollers now. It almost doesn't even look like a normal form of poker. Or they're all playing in this very similar way. It's kind of obnoxious.
So that's a situation where GTO is actually really, really important.
Sure,
because I mean, they might not. Whatever. There's a whole bunch of the economics behind the situation that we can leave aside. They're playing, maybe they're backed, maybe whatever, right? They're playing because they're playing in those events. That maybe why is a separate story. But if you find yourself in a 100K high roller and there's 6 other pros and 1 VIP, you better know your GTO, and you better know it very well, and you better be doing all these seemingly crazy things like checking the time of your watch to randomize your bluffing frequency. Yes, you should be doing those things. Is that practical for a training site? That's the, like I didn't want to model my training site after that. You know what I mean? I want my site to be practical.
Exactly to your point, how many people are playing those? So unless you're going to be playing those, then it's not at all practical. So.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents. I know people will disagree with me, and like I said, what is the uniqueness of my training site? My uniqueness is that you either think I'm amazing and you love what I'm saying, or you think I'm absolutely ridiculous and everything I'm saying is stupid. And the people that agree with me, you know, I might be polarizing, but that's the people that agree with me are going to be gravitated towards my content. The people that don't have other options. And like, that's great. That's the beauty of the world. Like some people like Coke, some people like Pepsi, and that's like people, you know, people are going to defend what they like. And that, you know, like you have to find something that fits with your unique learning style, right? Like you have to go with your strengths. If you're a mathematical person, you got to leverage that. And so it's just everyone's different.
So you have on your site, it says 4 things that you need to know before hiring a poker coach. You want to give us one or all of them?
Yeah. So one of the things was, you know, to find someone that you really like connect with and resonate with. And I think that's really important. Another one is to make sure that you are ready to like commit to the process and you're really ready to learn, and that poker is a priority in your life. And I think that's like another really important one, because it's only like, you know, you're going to get out what you put in, and the coach is the guide, and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And so I think it's really important to have that, like the marriage of the relationship there. And that's why, like when I work with clients, for example, I only work with 2 or 3 or 4 at one time. And I have like a month-long coaching program. And so it's really great because like it filters out, like you're just not going to get, I mean, you're not going to get anything out of one lesson, but you're not going to go to the gym and get a 6-pack in one training session, right? So it's like, if you only book 10 sessions and you commit to using all 10 of those in a month, like you're going to filter out a lot of clients, right? Some people are going to be like, I'm not really ready for that commitment, but that's great because the people that say yes to 10 sessions and I want to use them all in a month, they're going to get results.
Yeah.
And so that's I can't scale my time all, like, you know, I can only work with a couple people at a time because it's just the way it is. So it's actually a great relationship where I like, that's one thing I encourage a lot, that people that are like, if you're going to do it. And for me, I think people should be binary about their approach to coaching. I think you should really be all in on it and you should be committed to doing it. And poker should be a priority, or you should just be like, I don't want to do this yet. And I'm going to either not do this because poker's not a priority and that's fine. Or you should do it when you can make space for poker because you're investing money, you're investing time, you're going to want to get results. And I think people should be this way about anything. And so that's one of the other things I encourage. I don't remember what else. A few other things. Watch the video. I put out a blog on Conscious Poker.
We have a large enough following here on Instagram where people are going to want to hear some of your high stake stories. Can you drop a cool, you know, pot where you played for a couple $100,000?
What's the biggest pot we've played?
Yeah, biggest pot you've played. Anything that stands out there?
Or most memorable, which is usually a loss, but
yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good question. Put me on the spot. I mean, I have a few crazy stories. I think the most memorable pot. Oh, well, I could memorable and biggest. Okay, so I think. Well, there's a few. This pot was very big. It definitely wasn't the biggest, but it was very big. But it was also probably the most memorable. So I was playing. As many people know that are familiar with me and my content, I lived in Macau for 3 years from 2012. I played a lot of the big games there. I played at the Win, but also the big private games that were run at Star World. And there were a lot of the Macau VIPs, some of the guys you see in Triton. And so there's this one like super VIP. I'm not going to say his name, but like there was this like super VIP that like was like the VIP of the VIPs, right?
Okay.
So I'm in this game and things are not going well. It's actually having like one of the worst days that I've had. And I'm stuck 3 buy-ins in this game. And so my limit is usually always 3 buy-ins. I always tell like clients or like people like set a 3 buy-in stop loss. 3 buy-ins is a good place to go. I'm stuck 3 buy-ins in this game. But this game is like so amazing. Okay. So I'm like, I'm like, you know, I normally never break the rules, but you know, the rules are made to be broken because every situation is unique. And I'm like, I'm going in for a 4th buy-in. So I'm in for a 4th buy-in. The first, like maybe like the second hand of my 4th buy-in. Okay. VIP. So the blinds are, Jesus.
I like the term VIP, by the way, for massive whale. So
yeah, that got coined in Macau.
I like it.
The VIP seat. Yeah, they love it, right? Because you
can't, VIP. Hey.
So the blinds are. It's been a while since we played this hand. The blinds are 10K, 20K, 40K. Okay, with Hong Kong. So you divide by 7.76. So maybe like a 6K US big blind. It's a very big game.
Okay.
And there's a straddle to 80K. Okay. So the VIP in second position opens to 240K. We get 2 calls by 2 other VIPs.
What a game.
Yeah. Two calls. Maybe 1 other VIP called and like a pro called. Okay. But like the pros range, he never had a strong hand because he called after the other 2 VIPs.
Yeah,
so basically there's all this dead money in the pot. There's like almost $1 million in the pot, right? 720 plus the blinds. So I have 3.4 million. I bought in like 4 million or whatever. I lost 1 hand. So it's like right when I just bought in my 4th buy.
Okay.
So I have like 3.4, 3.6 million. And I'm just like, fuck it. I just jam. I'm on the button and I'm like, I don't want to raise to like $1 million and then it's going to go call. I have 2 10s and I'm like, this is not a spot where like, I also, it's my last buy and I also just like, I'm happy to chip up 800K with no showdown. It's like 25% of my stack. This is a great spot, right? If I'm called, I have 10s. It's not that.
Yeah.
So I just jam. The VIP, like I literally wish you can see this. Literally he takes, so we have these plaques in Macau, right? And the plaques represent 100K and they're like blocked in 10 and then they're rubber banded around. So he has these like blocks of plaques that represent his like, million stacks of chips. So he takes all of them and just immediately stands up and dumps them in the pot. And I'm like, holy shit, dude. I buy in my 4th buy-in. I'm against the VIP that plays any 2 cards, and he beats me in the pot. I'm like, how the hell does he have me beat here? He's literally playing like 60% of hands, okay? Yeah. He's literally playing like any 2 cards. So he beats me in the pot, the other 2 people fold, and he turns over Jack 7 suited, okay? I'm like, holy shit. He has Jack 7, like I'm ahead. I thought I was like drawing dead. He was so good.
It's over.
But he beats me in the pot, okay? So the pot's like 8 million. 8 million Hong Kong. And so the flop comes Jack high, right? And I'm like, holy shit. Like how does, like, I'm like, I'm usually not like, any weighted towards one hand or like, too upset about bad luck. But I'm like, this is like going to set me back to where like, now I'm going to have to go back to the win and grind 1K, 2K, which is still a big game. But like, get back the money I lost in this game. Like I can't buy in again, So, So I turn to my wife and she's sitting there sweating me. She's like always with me in the games and she's like friend with all the players. And so I'm like, this is not good. This is it.
Yeah.
We're going back to fucking Italy. So the turn comes a spade and now there's 3 spades on the board. So I'm like, Ambra, this is the one time you're going to have to pull out this spade on the card. So they love to sweat because they all play baccarat. So they put the card face down and Umbra like walks over to the to the table and she's like, and we're like, the VIPs are like, no, you can't just turn over the card. You have to sweat it. You have to pull it up and see if there's spades or see if there's like sides or whatever. So she's like pulling up the card and sweating and she's like doing it all slow and everybody's like coming over the whole table looking. The VIP doesn't even give a fuck. He's like half rooting for me because like, my wife's like sweating the card. He loves it. So she turns over a spade and we win this pot and we go on this like super upswing during the rest of the game and win back. Like, I maybe got like even in the game, which felt like the biggest win of my life.
Yeah.
And that like one session, it's so there's so much variance because if I lose that hand, maybe the next week or 2 weeks don't happen in the way that they did happen.
Yeah.
And, I won that hand and then like, I go on an upswing and I win. And there's just like so many things like that in life and poker where like, one hand can make a difference. I mean, granted, I got sort of unlucky to get to that point, but like still, there's so many things that happen where, you just never know how things could turn out. And I was on the right side of these things in Macau and I'm just lucky in a lot of ways too.
I remember Barry Greenstein writing an article maybe like 3 or 4 years ago that the one pot against Antonio changed his entire career, and it's crazy to think about. I remember watching
where he won a tournament or something.
No, it was a high stakes cash pot. It was like $1 million high stakes cash pot where they get it in, like Antonio has open-ended and a flush draw and Barry has like top set or maybe aces on like, a 4-6 queen board. And they run it once and Antonio scoops and Barry just kind of writes how like from that moment, like it just kind of changed his entire career. You win the $1 million pot, you lose it, and then it kind of sets you off.
The big game was really like that because, it's so much bigger than the game you're playing at the win. The game you play, the game you're playing it to win is big, but it's just like, you're never going to reach the long run in the big game in Macau, even though we played for a couple of years and we played a lot of hands, but like,
right.
there's still certain spots where like, you're only going to run it once.
Yeah.
And how many times are you going to have, or just even like simple things, like people don't even think about, like you flop a set and he has nothing, or you flop a set and he has aces. And like that one time you double up and there's like, 1,000 or 5,000 big blinds in your normal game. And like, you're just not going to simulate those things enough. It's kind of like playing a tournament.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to reach the long run in your tournament career. So
no, for sure.
Man, poker's a crazy game.
How long? So
go ahead.
No, how long after that did you stop playing? Like, did those Macau games still run, or is Macau still like a big scene in the high stakes cash before obviously COVID? But
no, so the big game in Macau stopped running for a lot of reasons, like some political reasons, and like it just doesn't run anymore. But I mean, there's still high stakes poker cash games that run with Triton that move around in Vegas and whatever like that. But it's not like the Macau crew with the Macau game. Like that era is over. But I mean, there's still high stakes cash games that happen around the world, obviously.
Was Dwan around those tables back then, or was Dwan not?
Yeah. Played a lot with Tom.
Nice.
Yeah, man, he got me in a huge pot. It was so tilting. We have a few. We played a lot of hands, but yeah. So I mean, that game doesn't run, and like just the Macau scene has changed so much. Like when I was there in 2012, it's kind of like online poker, right? Like online poker still runs, but it's not the online poker of like Full Tilt 2007, where like VIP, like Guy and all the VIPs were playing, and there's like, it's just not the same. So I mean, Macau is very much the same trajectory, where like the shit that went down at the Win, like in 2012 to 2015, was just like once in a lifetime, and it's just kind of over. I mean, there's still VIPs that come, and there's still like, but it's just progressed in the same way that online poker has, and there was a golden window there, like anything in life, and it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, makes sense.
Who would you say the best poker player in the world is right now? Put you on the spot.
Right now, I don't know. It's too hard to say now, because well, it's also too hard to say ever, just because tournament players and cash game players are like different skill sets. But when I played, I thought Nicholas Heinecker was probably the toughest player I played against. He was Reagan 70 online. He was the biggest winner in 2016 online, and he played on all the Macau big games. It was crazy because he was super good at online poker, but then he was equally a beast at live poker.
It's
also
very rare.
Yeah, Michael Turitz was really good too. Chow Ren, he plays or Play to Kill was his old screen name on Full Tilt. Yeah, so we talked a lot of poker. Like these guys were like, I was like close with these people when I was in Macau, just be able to talk poker and like watch them play and stuff like that, playing with them all the time. And so like I'm just kind of like riding the wave, like it helped me be a lot better and reach a level that I couldn't have done on my own. And it was cool because in Macau we were all competing against each other, but then in a way we were all like, kind of a team in the sense that like everybody was. It was kind of like, you go to the Olympics and like you competing against these other people, but then you're still like kind of like friends with them because you're all coming in, you're all in the same boat, right? You all leave your life behind. You come from all around the world to go play in these games. And like at the end, I'm not trying to beat Nicholas as much as Nicholas and I are both trying to beat the VIP, right? So it's just like, obviously everyone's for themselves and it's zero sum, but like, you get up and you go to lunch before the game. Like, who do you go to lunch with? I go to lunch with them, and we talk. What do we talk about? We talk poker and we talk strategy. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of weird because like I'm not telling him my strategy against him, but we're both talking about our strategy against other people. So then you would have these little cliques where like there would be, let's say there's like 30 pros in Macau, right? 30 people that play the high stakes games. So you'd have a clique of like you and 5 other people, and you would talk about what you would do against the other 25 pros, but then like you wouldn't talk about what you would do with each other. And then like, you wouldn't talk to these other 25 pros about what you would do. So we kind of developed our own little circles.
Yeah. How would those games run if there's 25, 30 of you guys, how would they have games running? I mean, if there's 30 of you guys trying to get in with the VIPs, so they have more than one table running?
So that's a good question. So actually, let me clarify a few things. I would say we did a count one time, and I would say there was like 40 maybe it was like 30 to 50. I forgot the actual number. We did a count one time. I actually forgot the number because it was a couple of years ago. There was like a certain number of pros that were like considered regulars in Macau at the high stakes games. It might have been like 30, but they weren't all there at one time because there were visa limitations and nobody spends 12 months a year in Macau. So that limited the amount of pros that were there. But then let's say at any one time, there's like 25 of them there. Okay. Let's say there's 50 and there's 25 of them there. I'm just throwing out a number, but they all don't want to play every day. So that limits the number of pros. But then also like, sometimes there were multiple tables, but like as what happened over time is the games got much more competitive. So like as the games got bigger and the opportunity got bigger and there were more VIPs and like, relative to that sort of thing, there would be more and more competition to get into games. So what you used to be able to do in 2012 is you can just like show up and there's just like 3 tables, there's a bunch of VIPs, you get in the games. It wasn't really that competitive, right? Kind of like online poker when it first started, there's just always a game, there's always a seat, you just play, sit down and print. What happened like towards the end was that like you would start the game and you would wait for the VIP. So you would start a game with like a bunch of pros and maybe like 1 or 2 mediocre pros, but the games got so efficient where you would start the game with a bunch of pros and then you would leave a seat open and hope that the VIP came. And so what happened was, anytime there was like a VIP in town that you could be relatively sure he would come at, let's say 8 p.m. The games would start at like 4 p.m. But then what happened is things got more and more efficient and the people would be like, well, I could go play a game for 4 hours with tough pros to play a game with a VIP for 10 hours. So then they would show up at 3 p.m. Then they would show up at 2 p.m. So then people started showing up early. Eventually got to the point where we would get to the casino at like 6 a.m., play till 6 or 8 p.m. just to hope that the VIP came. And then you would play another 12 hours with the VIP. So you'd play 24 hours in a game. And then you would skip the next day because you had to sleep during the days that the other pros came to sit down with the VIP, because the VIP only comes every night and he only plays 6 or 8 hours. So the VIP is consistent, but you could only play once every other day because of the way that you had to do to be competitive to get in the games. So this is what Macau came to at the end. And it was very demanding, very demanding.
Did there become a situation where some of the maybe nittier pros were like, did the VIPs not want to play with some of the nittier pros? We've talked about like how John Rivera Blonde was really good for action. People always wanted to play with him, and Roble kind of got into the game because of him. Was there situations like that?
Yeah. So the VIPs, so there's situations like that where like some of the VIPs were totally indifferent, right? Some of the VIPs didn't really know what was like, it just depends on the VIP. Some of the VIPs definitely didn't want that, but at the end of the day, if the game was private at Star World, they had complete control over who got in, and Star World was much more about who you knew and your ability, like your how enjoyable you were to be around as a person rather than your poker talent. Talent didn't really matter, but the Wynn is a public casino, so the VIP could sit down and be like, I don't want to play with this guy, but like, that guy's in a public casino, you can't just kick him out of the game. I mean, the VIP could say like, I'm not going to sit down unless you're in the game, unless you leave the game, which like maybe happened once, but like those things, that didn't really happen that much. But what did happen a lot is that the pros that were able to make a living in 2012 when I got there, like sort of got filtered out in the sense that like now they had to play in these games with other pros in order to play the games with the VIPs. So what happened was those games got more efficient, and the worst pros that were actually kind of not very good because they were used to playing with only VIPs in these games in Macau before the Western or the rest of the pros came out. They stopped playing in the games that were all pros waiting for the VIPs because they were just going to get smashed in those games. So then those games that were only pros waiting for VIPs were now only the better pros or the best pros. So the games got tougher and tougher. And so these players got sort of filtered out, right? It's kind of like what you saw in online poker. Like a pro in 2006 was not a pro in 2012. That person became the fish in 2012, right? So you saw that in Macau happen too. It's crazy.
It's quite wild. Fine.
So yeah, I've got one more question. I know we're kind of running up on time now. A lot of the guys are trying to figure out how to get from 2-5 to playing in the bigger games like that. Any advice kind of getting people from these lower stakes up in the mid and the high stakes games?
Yeah. I mean,
not just poker.
Like you want to think about how other athletes approach their craft. And if you look at what other athletes do or other people that are competitive in their field, they're spending a disproportionate amount of their time studying and in the lab and trying to get better, as opposed to only performing. So if you look at like an athlete, they have a game once or twice a week, but they're spending 7 days a week on that game, whether it's their mental game, their diet, their bodybuilding, they're doing drills, they're watching tape, they're doing something, they're talking strategy, they're always doing something. And so I would challenge people to think the same way about poker, is that like, especially in this time right now where people might not be able to play as much, but there's still like, you can actually do more to get better at poker, whether it's, better managing your mental game, your bankroll, your routine, your strategy, your tactics, reviewing your hands. There's always something you can be doing to improve, excuse me. And so I would recommend that people spend more time doing that. And one thing I say to my clients, because a lot of people are busy and I totally get it, is just to be like, take an 80-20 approach. Like if you're going to spend 8 hours per session playing poker, spend 7 or 7.5 and come home and give me 30 minutes. Give me 30 minutes in the lab where you do a simple exercise that, I walk you through how to do. You can look at the best way to study poker on consciouspoker.com. It's free. I walk you through how to do it. The exercise the pros do that walks you through how to study in the lab. It's a free blog post or a free video on Conscious Poker, or how to crush 2-5 no limit. It's a free blog post or a free video on Conscious Poker. And it's just like, these are things you can do to get better on your own. And you can do some of these things on your own. You don't even, if you want to work with someone or join a site, fine. But there's exercises you can do on your own to improve. So I think that's the most important thing, right? Because your ability to win in a game is contingent on how skilled you are. And so the more time you spend harnessing that skill, the better you're going to be, the more your hourly rate's going to be, the lower your variance is going to be, the better chance you have of succeeding. And the other thing is just making sure that it's really a priority, making sure that your actions are in line with your ambitions. And if you really want to beat 510, that you have to understand that that's, reaching a level of proficiency that's top, 1%. And with that means sacrifice. Like you don't get to the top 1% or 2% or whatever it is in a niche without making that a big priority in your life. And that means that something's got to give. Maybe it's TV, maybe it's other activities and whatever. And so you really have to make sure that that's in line with what you actually want.
That's an excellent answer, actually.
It is.
All right. So I have one last question. It's going to put you on the spot.
Let's do it.
I'm a big reader, so I want you to give me a book to read.
I like it.
It just depends on what subject, that's a good question. That's definitely a good question. Let me see, because I have a list of the books I read last year. What subject? A specific one or no?
I mean, I don't know. I'm a math guy. I'm a numbers guy. Predictably Irrational is the book I'm reading right now. I love it. Logic, sociology. I don't read anything fiction. It's got to be nonfiction. It's got to better my life in some way.
Okay, that's fair.
How to stop the addiction of limit hold'em to actually start enjoying your life.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm looking at some of the books I read last year. I liked Principles by Ray Dalio. That was really cool. He's I think runs the biggest private hedge fund in the world, Bridgewater, and he's been doing it for years. I think he's like late 60s, and basically just shares all the principles he's used. It actually really reminds me of poker in a way, because like you see that he does something like that's similar to poker, like macro investing, stock trading. And he has these principles that are like, lessons he learned from stock trading that apply not just to help him be a better stock trader, but also that apply to his life. And so he has these simple maxims, and if you follow him on Twitter, he shares little like graphics of his maxims every day. And they're like things that he lives by, and they're called his principles. And it's like really cool because it's relatable to poker, where you see that like, oh wow, this is something that I learned from poker that I can apply. And he has these things and he applies them across all these different situations. It's very interesting.
I think you should consider writing a book.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, actually, on that note, if I can do a short plug, I have a book coming out in May.
There we go.
Yeah.
Good read.
So it's called The Poker Coach, and it's just like the best strategies I've learned to improve at poker. So it walks you through like from the beginning, like managing your bankroll, all the way to practical strategies, mastering the math, mastering the odds, hand reading, the mental game, the whole thing. And it's all in a linear process to follow. And it should be available for pre-order. So if you follow me on social or jump on my email list, which is free, I'll be putting out alert about that. So I did write a book. So but I would like to also do a book about like lessons I learned in poker that, translate over.
Right. Yeah, I think that'd be great.
That's a bucket list item. But I got this one done first, so I kind of got my poker book out of the way. But I'm excited.
Well, now you have to
that.
give it out when they bust you at live tables.
Are we going to be on video?
It'll also be on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. So here's the book.
Oh, I like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I like the title. I like the cover. That's nice.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. So
looks good.
It'll be available on pre-order. You should be able to find it on Amazon or in bookstores. May 12th. So yeah, I'm excited.
One of the things you said, Alec, it actually resonated with me. I think about this often. Somebody was talking to you about how to deal with bad beats, and you kind of gave a short little answer about if you're watching this video, you're on a smartphone, which means you've already won the biggest coin flip in life. And I thought that was just an excellent way to look at things and put in perspective, basically, like how lucky we are to actually not be in a third world country and stuff like that, and not feel entitled. So
yeah, thank you for that. I do put out some content about that. And basically the premise was just that, like half the world lives on $5.50 a day.
Yep.
And like, you didn't do anything to be born into the half that doesn't.
Yep.
Living on whatever you're living on. And it could seem bad, could be difficult, but that's a coin flip. You could just be born, in a village and somewhere, and just how do you, that's just luck. And like, I think if you think about it, luck is not distributed evenly, and like all of us got disproportionate amount of luck in the big picture. So
the book I'm reading now, Predictably Irrational, it goes over kind of how people overestimate how they've gotten into different spaces in life. Like they always they give it to themselves as like, I did this, I built this, I thought my way out of this. And they fail to look at all the different fortunate things that happened to them, starting with being maybe born in the country they were born in. And they fail to realize how much variance and luck was involved in getting to that spot. So
yeah, I mean, just to get the at bat is truly extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it's sure you have to play your hand well. And in fact, my keynote was called Being Dealt a Winning Hand and Playing It Well. So the first whole half of my keynote was helping people understand that they were dealt a winning hand using like odds and math and these sorts of things, right? That poker players maybe look at in a different way. And I was like, look at the numbers, look at the data. Like you're dealt the winner. So like your focus, and I agree, we should be focused on playing the hand the best way possible because that's all you can do. But at the same time, we have to first start with acknowledging that, we're extremely lucky. There's a lot to be grateful for. And I think that's a great perspective to have, because if you have that perspective, you sort of already won. And if you look at life like you're on a free roll because, you were dealt a winning hand and you're just on a free roll now, I think that's a great place to be as a baseline perspective to have in life. And then whatever happens is like, it is just icing on the cake. It's just a game. Guys, if you made it this far, you are awesome. Thank you so much for your attention. Smash that like button and subscribe to this channel. I'm putting out a lot more awesome content on the Conscious Poker YouTube. Thank you for your attention. I'll see you in the next one.